Sometimes it's just not fair to be the child of a celebrity. There just seems to be an added sense of pressure. There is an unfair expectation that the child will have to go on and live up to the status of the parent. And for LeBron James Jr., also known as Bronny, the bar has been set pretty high, and for obvious reasons. LeBron James, his father, is constantly talked about as being the greatest of all time. Bronny is trying really hard to follow in his father's footsteps, and is taking it all in stride as a 16-year-old sophomore. As far as his father is concerned, what we do know is that anytime you have LeBron James on your team, it's almost guaranteed that your team will be making it into the NBA Finals. In fact, the second season of the LeBron James and Los Angeles Lakers marriage has culminated with a familiar playoff fate for a James-led team, which is a berth in the NBA Finals. And the 2020 Finals will mark the 10th time a James-led team has reached the championship stage. Think about that, 10th time, with 4 different teams, including Cleveland, twice. Absolutely amazing. He hasn't broken down yet and doesn't look like he will be slowed, so he probably has another good 2 to 3 years in him to be the number 1 or number 2 on his team and be able to make a deep championship run. And when a reporter asked the King if he would entertain the idea of playing for the Knicks down the road if his son, Bronny James, were drafted by the team, James didn't completely dismiss the idea, but admitted that it's too early to worry about something like that. He said, "My son is in 9th grade, man. We're trying to worry about what project he's got to turn in tomorrow. That's what we worry about right now. That's what's most important. School, home, and being the best big brother he can be." But before we jump in, please remember that if you've enjoyed the video thus far and can't wait to see if LeBron and his son will play with each other for a championship, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons and make sure to tell your friends and family about the journey we are about to embark on. Now let's dive in a bit deeper. Bronny James turned 16 this month and is currently a sophomore at the Sierra Canyon School in California. James won't graduate high school until 2023, so the earliest that he could potentially enter the NBA would be the 2023-24 season. The NBA has thrown around the possibility of allowing players to enter the NBA draft out of high school again, and James has entertained the idea of playing alongside his son in the past. In 2018, LeBron said about Bronny, "You want to ask me what is the greatest achievement of my life? If I'm on the same court as my son in the NBA, that would be number 1 in my lifetime as an NBA player. I've thought about it because my son is about to be 14, and he might be able to get in there a little earlier. If Bronny were eligible to be drafted and landed with the Knicks," and as a disgruntled Knicks fan, it isn't wild to think the Knicks will still be picking early in the draft 3 years from now. LeBron would need to play past his current contract with the Lakers, which expires following the 2021-22 season. In 2023, James would be 37 years old, and who knows what kind of level he will be playing at. But then again, he's like a machine that doesn't break, so it's not too hard to fathom the idea of him still dominating an NBA game. It's something that hasn't been seen very often in sports. Considering that James is still one of the top players that the NBA has to offer, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if he got the chance to play alongside his son someday. But when you think about the prospect of LeBron playing with his son, it makes you really feel for the young King Bronny. Yes, he's the son of LeBron, who we all call the King, and has more perks than most 16-year-olds, but the expectations are high. And if you're interested in seeing what perks Bronny has, then you should check out our video about Bronny and the items that he can afford at his age. Bronny has a very bright future ahead of himself in the basketball world, but will he ever be good enough? The hype is there, and so are the scouts. So are the reviews. The world was out to see him during his high school freshman season, and we all know being LeBron's son was the main reason. But will that be enough for him to get to the NBA in 2 to 3 years and play alongside his father? Bronny James was thrown right into the fire. He knew the attention would be there. He knew there would be media scrutiny, but he actually handled it quite well. Bronny's Sierra Canyon teammate, Zara Williams, said, "He's a great young man. He doesn't let anybody faze him. You'd be surprised all the stuff he has to go through. It's not fair, but he doesn't let it faze him." And he's right. Most 16-year-olds would buckle under the immense pressure. When I was 16, I was interested in hanging out with my friends, listening to the latest music, and learning to drive, not prepping for an NBA career under the spotlight of a father who was a GOAT candidate. Can you imagine living under that pressure? Let's be honest though, it's tough, but a very good problem to have. Playing for Sierra Canyon, a private school in Los Angeles, and being the son of an NBA legend, Bronny has certainly played in front of packed gyms throughout his freshman year. While Sierra also had 2 top 10 high school prospects on the team, along with the son of Dwayne Wade, the fans were there to see Bronny. And also to catch a glimpse of father Lebron. The fans were there to see both, side by side, just as they would if they were playing an NBA basketball game together. Can you imagine the crowds at an NBA game with those two on the squad? What Bronny does have going for him is his poise. Whether he was that mature for a 15-year-old freshman, or whether he was just used to growing up with a famous father, Bronny played it cool. He's a very normal kid, and clearly a very mature kid. And that's all thanks to his parents bringing up a humble young man. With what he's been given, it's easy for kids like him to go off the rails. Yes, it's still early and things can change, but I think LeBron and his wife can handle that. So, in conclusion, do we think they can win a championship together if they played on the same NBA team? Well, first Bronny needs to make it to the NBA, skip college, and the NBA changes its rule back to allow high school players to be eligible for the NBA draft again. And we know LeBron has the championship pedigree to win, but does his son? Probably, being a James and all, but with those two being vulnerable at their ages, with Bronny being so young and LeBron being much older, they will still need a team of 2 to 3 other stars to pull that off. Or maybe not. I mean, he is the king after all.